I cannot wait for the PlayStation 5. The reveal was supposed to happen last Thursday, but because of current events, they delayed the PlayStation 5 launch until this Thursday, which is June 11th, 2020. That's in a couple days from now. And I wanted to just reflect about the history of the PlayStation 4 a little bit, what I remember from that console's launch, the good things, the bad things, and what I hope that the PlayStation 5 will bring. So first, let's start with the amazing things. Like many of you, I remember getting my PlayStation 4 not on launch day, but when it first came out. And when I first set it up, I was just amazed by how beautiful Battlefield 4 was and how Killzone Shadowfall was. Those were the two launch games I got, along with Call of Duty Ghosts. And I specifically remember on Battlefield 4, the very first campaign mission when you're walking down the hallway of that elementary school, and you see the reflection in the water and the lighting, how it comes through the window. I remember just being so blown away by the graphics on day one. And I really hope that the PlayStation 5 has that same kind of wow factor, where it's just such a huge increase. And I'm sure it will be. Another thing I loved about the PlayStation 4 was the share button and everything that you could do with it. You were able to not only just live stream to YouTube, which the Xbox still cannot do. You can only live stream to Twitch, which I actually don't even use. But you can take screenshots and record videos up to an hour long at 1080p, at least on the Pro, on the base version, only at 720p. But that is an incredible feature. Right now, I have the Xbox One X, and I could technically record for up to an hour of 4K resolution, which is amazing, but you have to have a hard drive plugged in. And it just so happens that I've been having issues with that for whatever reason. I don't know if it's my hard drive, but I can't record gameplay anymore. But I've never had that issue on PlayStation 5. It's so easy to take a screenshot. It's so easy to record gameplay. And that was an incredible feature that wasn't even on my radar, really, when the PlayStation 4 launched. I thought that was incredible. On the PlayStation 3, if you go back on my YouTube channel, you can see that I used the Hauppauge HD PVR to record gameplay footage. It was only up to 1080, but that required a lot of work, actually, because you had to plug in this extra device to the wall for power. Then you had to plug the console into that device, and then that device into the TV, and then you had to plug the device into a computer that was running a program to record the gameplay footage. Huge hassle. A big pain, too. And it was stressful on the computer I used back then, over 10 years ago. And so there's a lot of freezing, a lot of issues. And so with this ability on the PlayStation 4, just solves so many problems with that for content creators or people that are just wanted to record fun gameplay. And that's an awesome feature. And actually, in my opinion, it's better than the Xbox as well. The Xbox is a little bit more clunky. You have to press the home button or the Xbox button to bring up the menu and then click to record. And there's always like a long delay. Sometimes even a minute will go by, with taking photos, even. And you can only record up to 30 seconds of gameplay, which is worthless for any type of commentary or, recording anything other than just quick events. Another thing I loved about the PlayStation 4 was that it had an in-game menu that was actually smooth and easy to use. And the user interface overall was just amazing. I remember very clearly on the PlayStation 3 when they released the patch update that allowed you to access the cross-media bar to check your messages in-game. Because prior to that, if you got a message, you would have to quit the game to read it. People got around that by just putting what you wanted to say in the title of the message. So while you were playing, you could just kind of get a few words and see, if a friend was trying to contact you or something like that. The PlayStation 4 changed everything with being able to access all that stuff in game. You could view your trophies. It wouldn't shut down everything. It was very quick and very responsive. Unlike the PlayStation 3, when they came out with the update, it was just tacked on there. and it didn't perform very well. And what's interesting is even before they released that update for the PlayStation 3, I remember games like Resistance Fall of Man, which came out in 2006, a PS3 launch title. They eventually, Insomniac released a update just for that game that allowed you to access your messages and your friends list in-game, but you had to do it in that game's menu. Now, that's not as good as being able to view it in the lobby or to view it, while you're playing a game, but at least you don't have to shut down the whole application. And so that's what I loved about the PlayStation 4. Is from day one they had this feature. People that had the Xbox 360, it might be kind of silly listening to this because the Xbox 360 had this feature and I was always envious. And I'm so glad that they included it so well in the PlayStation 4, and it worked great. Let's talk about some bad things, though, about the PlayStation 4. PS4 brought a lot of great improvements, without a doubt. There's no question. But while they may have taken 2 steps forward, they took 1 step back with a lot of things. Number one, the media functionality. The PlayStation 3 was amazing for media. It was actually better than the PS4 even today at the end of the PS4's life cycle. The PS3, you were able to copy your CDs to the hard drive, which, who uses CDs anymore? But you could also use your USB hard drive or thumb drive and just copy songs or pictures to your hard drive. And that was awesome because you could, have your photos. You could look at your photos on the big screen. You wanted to show your family or whatever, set as your background. You could also, I was always hoping to be able to have in-game music. Unfortunately, that never worked out with the PlayStation 3, even though you could with the Xbox. And that's a bad thing about the PlayStation 4 as well. So it's definitely a huge step back because you couldn't do any of those features. I didn't miss so much the PS4 not having a compact flash or an SD card reader. That doesn't really matter. That's kind of overkill with the PlayStation 3 because you could always buy a cheap adapter. But even now, PS4 doesn't give you the option to copy your media to the hard drive, and you can't listen to your own music. You can only use Spotify, which is ridiculous. That is crazy. It's not as big of a deal now because everyone has smartphones, and smartphones, you can just listen to it on that. You could stream on YouTube. If you have Bluetooth headphones or, normal headphones, you can have that. So the necessity for this kind of feature has changed as well, but it's also kind of ridiculous that the PlayStation 4 was never able to match the PlayStation 3's media functionality features. The second thing I didn't like about the PlayStation 4 was installing updates. I could not believe, and I still can't believe, just how long it takes to install updates. Now, I don't have a solid state drive on my PS4, and so maybe having that would make a difference. But the PS4 is notoriously slow for installing updates. So bad, in fact, that you would install a 80 gig update, 50, 60 gig update, which is pretty common for most AAA games these days. And you would be waiting longer than it took to download the update just for it to install the update. And I understand it's complicated, to do that, and they have their own explanation for it, I guess, but Xbox never had that problem. It downloads it, does a quick install. It's not that big of a deal. The other bad thing about the PlayStation 4 was its lack of backwards compatibility. Now, this is totally understandable. They actually included it initially, and they included it on the, actually, that's more of PlayStation 3. I'll go back. So PlayStation 3 did a great job with backwards compatibility, but they got rid of it after, I think, the first couple years because it was so expensive to include that PS2 and PlayStation 1 back compatibility. So they took it out and then they started emulating it, and then it wasn't even that good. Basically, the feature just disappeared. And with the PlayStation 4, there was no attempt really at all to do any kind of, at home native backwards compatibility. The only thing you could do is repurchase and re-download a very, very, very select few PlayStation 2 titles or PlayStation 3 titles. I never did that with PlayStation 3, but they have the service where you could stream it, I guess, or download some of those things, but you couldn't just pop in your disc and play it like you can on the Xbox. And so that's a bummer, but I could totally understand because the PlayStation 3, the architecture was so unique and different that it wasn't like, PC style like consoles are now, and like the PlayStation 4 is now, so it makes it really, really hard to do that. So I totally get it, and so I'm really, really glad that if you watched Mark Cerny's conference from however many months ago, February or March, I think it was, where he talks about that's a huge focus for the PlayStation 5 is to be able to play the PlayStation 4 games, which is amazing because so many people bought the PlayStation 4. I can't remember how many, over 100 million or something like that consoles sold. And so that's going to really help with the transition. You're going to get so many people on day one because they'll be able to play all of their PlayStation 4 games, which is awesome. That's going to really, really help. The final thing I didn't like about the PlayStation 4 was some of the wasted features. Now, it's hard. I could totally understand this might not apply to everyone because some people really like some of these features. But to me, anything that detracts from actual just playing games, it detracts from the overall experience and they kind of lose their focus. When the Xbox launched originally, they were so focused on the being able to control the main menu with the Kinect and including that, and that was more expensive, and it was just a total gimmick and a waste. With the PlayStation 4, I think the controller with the touchpad is a big waste as well, and features like that. It looks like they're going to have the same feature again. It's just a waste of space. I think they could do something better with that. I'd prefer just to have, just like a normal button, or for that button to go away altogether. But having that little touchpad on the front, I think it's a complete waste of space because no games use it. There's nothing... I can't name a single game that actually uses any kind of touchpad feature. The only thing you can do is it's like a gimmick that you try for 3 seconds, typing with that thing, guiding your finger around the on-screen type pad. But it's so much slower than just selecting with the D-pad. It's, so much less accurate. And so really, I hope that the PlayStation 5 does not have that wasted feature. I hope it's used. I remember the PlayStation 3, they came out with the 6-axis controller, and Resistance Fall of Man, very first game, did a great job with incorporating 6-axis. Whenever somebody, an alien grabbed you and jumped onto you, you had to physically shake your controller, or if you got set on fire, if you stepped over fire, got caught on fire, you'd have to shake the controller to get the fire off. And I thought that was an amazing feature that just really wasn't used that much on the PlayStation 4, unfortunately. I know that the PlayStation 4 does have kind of 6-axis, maybe they call it something else, but really no games use it. The developers and everyone's just basically focusing on just playing games, and I think that's just what people want to do. Enough with the gimmicks, enough with the silliness, just make games better. And if you have a feature, developers should actually, utilize it, not just an indie game every once in a while. So finally, let's talk about PlayStation 5 and what I hope to see in a couple days when they release the details. I'm so excited, and by the time I upload this video, or by the time it's live, all this information will be known. What happens right now, everything is in the dark. We don't even know what the PlayStation 5 looks like. And so it'll be interesting to listen to this after the conference and see, what came true, what didn't happen. But here's my hopes for the PlayStation 5. I hope that the PS5 does not take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I hope they don't do what the PlayStation 4 did and have all these cool new features, but then completely throw away some pretty good features from the PlayStation 4. I hope they keep all the great things about the PlayStation 4 and just add to it. It shouldn't be that hard unless it goes against another important feature. with the PlayStation 4, I think the PS4 is more powerful than the PS3, so it should be able to play music, and you should be able to copy your pictures to the hard drive. You should be able to do that, but somebody made the decision that they didn't want to support that feature. So I really hope they do not sacrifice things that we have become accustomed to on the PlayStation 4. The next thing I'm really hoping for is for native 4K 60 for all games. PlayStation 4 Pro was amazing because it allowed for a type of 4K checkerboard rendering. It was not native 4K, and it wasn't that big of a deal until the Xbox One X came out, and you could tell there's a big difference between checkerboarding and native 4K. So I don't want any tricks or gimmicks. I want native 4K. It should be possible. If the Xbox One X can do native 4K for Battlefield 1, for example, all games should be able to do 4K 60 or even higher. But that's like the gold standard, I think, for 2020 and the next couple of years, is be able to play 4K 60 frames per second for all games. Number 3, I hope that the PlayStation 5, and again, we don't know what it looks like yet, but I really hope it has a sleek design without cooling problems. I think the PlayStation 4 looked amazing. It was beautiful. It was small, slanted. I thought the PS3 was really cool looking as well, unique. They curved the top of it so that way you wouldn't set things on top of it. But it was so big and bulky, that PlayStation 3. But it really doesn't matter so much how big it is, as long as you just put it in one place and set it down. But it is nice to have a small, sleek console. And hopefully they can make it small enough and sleek enough and make it look good without being so bulky like the PlayStation 4 Pro or the original PlayStation 3, and without having cooling problems. Unfortunately, right now, the PlayStation 4 Pro, it's really bulky. It takes up a lot of space. It does not look good at all, I think, because of that, because it's so big and it goes so far deep. And also it has cooling problems. The console can play, it can run, but it runs extremely loud and it's embarrassing. It sounds like a jet engine taking off. Xbox One X does not have that problem. Only recently did I actually start hearing the Xbox One X, but it's so much quieter than the PS4 Pro. And finally, I hope that the PlayStation 5 has long-lasting hardware in it. I've only learned recently that apparently when the PlayStation 4 came out, that people that understood the tech of the PS4, they knew that the CPU that was included was about 5 years old by the time it even came out. It was an old laptop CPU, as far as I understand it. I've tried to do more research, but it's really hard to find more information on the Jaguar processor because they have a different name, I guess. And so to try to find a comparable thing now, so many years after it came out, but I guess when the PlayStation 4 launched, it launched with really, really old guts. It was really, really slow processor, not that powerful. And it's really incredible that they were able to make games even now look so good. Uncharted or Horizon look really, really great, even now. And especially on the PlayStation 4 Pro, which they just have a slightly updated version of that Jaguar processor. And so I hope that the guts of the PlayStation 5 actually prove to be long-lasting, that years and years from now, it will hold up really well and it won't feel out of date. Now the PlayStation 4, especially in the context of the Pro and the Xbox One X, the PS4, just does not look that great. Although it does look a lot better than the original Xbox One, so at least you have that. So it seems that will be the case because we already have a general idea of what's in the guts of the PS5 with its SSD and its ability to read and write data extremely fast with its NVMe SSD. I'm looking at the specs here online. It's 16 gigabytes of GDDR6. That seems exciting because it's double the memory of the PS4, which is great. And it's like a new generation. It's not GDDR5, it's GDDR6. And so hopefully that is just such a huge generational improvement that, that memory won't seem so small even in a few years from now. And I really hope also that compared to the Xbox that, because right now it seems like the PlayStation doesn't have as good of internals as the Xbox. It has 10 teraflops versus I think it's like 12 or so on the Series X. But I know that teraflops are not all created equal, and there's tricks that they could use, and so I really hope that they that their hardware is actually gives PC a run for its money, that its hardware ray tracing is actually competitive and is not just a gimmick, and that games are able to very quickly use the extent of the PlayStation 5's power and not feel limited from day one. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So anyway, I'm really excited to see this thing on Thursday. Again, if you're listening to this, it's probably already passed, so you already know. So this is more of like kind of historical documentation, I guess, what people are thinking, what people are saying before the PlayStation 5 is officially unveiled. And I'll certainly do another video in a couple days when the PS5 is unveiled. But I'm really excited for it. Hopefully you're excited for it too. If you have any comments, what you liked or didn't like about the PS4, or what you think about the PlayStation 5, and especially how it compares to the Xbox, go ahead and leave a comment. And thanks for watching.